Oh wow, I've got a good one for you today. You all asked for it, so here it is, a 9-part story with every update I could find. It's all about a mother-in-law who might just be the wildest we've ever talked about on this channel. We're calling it Mother-in-Law in the Wild, the Wedding Cake Saga. Let's dive in. So, I work part-time at a bakery. We have 4 employees who specialize in designing wedding cakes. Part of my job is meeting with customers, showing them our list of flavors, and sharing photos of wedding cakes we've made before. This helps them decide on a cake design that's just right for them. This morning, I had a couple scheduled to come in at 8:30. But to my surprise, they showed up at 7:45, and they brought an older woman with them. It was a bit annoying because we were already busy with the morning rush, but my boss asked me to take care of them anyway. So, I go over, introduce myself to the couple, congratulate them, and go through my usual talk. I show them our flavors, point out popular options, and share photos of some cakes we've done before. The bride-to-be takes the book and holds it so only she and her fiancé can see. The older woman sighs and steps outside for a smoke. The couple is really sweet and quickly picks out 5 designs they like. About 20 minutes later, the older woman comes back and asks what she missed. The fiancé shows her the designs they chose, and she immediately starts complaining. No, that's too detailed. No, that one's too plain. That's not big enough. That's too big, and so on. It felt like I was listening to a grumpy version of Goldilocks. I glance over at this woman and ask the bride how many guests they're having. She tells me a number, but the mother-in-law jumps in with a number twice as large. The bride repeats her original number and explains that they're having a small wedding. The mother-in-law starts whining, saying she's already invited people and can't uninvite them now because that would be rude. The bride just shrugs. Then the mother-in-law turns to me and insists on the larger number. I tell her, sorry, the bride has the final say. At that, the mother-in-law huffs, well, why did I even bother coming if no one's going to listen? The daughter-in-law says, I don't know why you insisted on coming. The mother-in-law replies, my son's getting married. I have every right to be here. The daughter-in-law calmly says, he's marrying me. You can come to the planning sessions, but I don't need your input. If I want it, I'll ask. Mother-in-law opens her mouth to argue, then just says, ugh, I need a cigarette, and goes outside to smoke. I look at the daughter-in-law, honestly amazed by how she stood her ground. The daughter-in-law then turns to her fiancé, who's been staring at the floor in total silence, looking like he wants to disappear. She glares at him and says, I told you this would happen. He mumbles, what am I supposed to do? Control your mother or I will, she snaps. The future husband sighs, clearly dreading it, but heads outside to deal with his mom like he's walking into battle. The daughter-in-law turns back to me, apologizes for the scene, and asks about scheduling a cake tasting and meeting with the designer. I set up the appointments for her and mention that we can set a password so no one can make changes to the date or cake without her permission. She likes the idea and asks me to make sure the password isn't shared with her fiancé, then leaves. I'm both impressed by her confidence and a bit sad that she feels she needs a password to keep her future mother-in-law from meddling. Hey everyone, it's Mr. Revenge Online here. Hope you're having an awesome day. Get ready because there are some wild updates on the way. I've got every single detail from OP, so buckle up, grab some candy, and let's dive into the first update. Alright, here's the background. The mother-in-law has a very noticeable accent that's rare in my area, while the bride and groom don't have accents at all. This will matter in a moment. So, I was cleaning my station when the phone rang. My coworker answered, saying it was about a wedding cake. Even though I was exhausted and ready to head home, I had to handle it since I was the only one working on wedding cakes that week. Hello, this is the bakery, Joyce speaking. How can I help you? Oh yes, hello, said the caller. I was there this weekend with my fiancé and future mother-in-law looking at wedding cakes and making appointments. I have a few changes I want to make. Wait a second, I recognize that accent. No way, I thought. No ducking way. Out loud, I said, sure thing. Can I have your name and info? Oh, my name is _____, and I need to change the cake servings. I need double the original amount, and I can't remember my appointment time with the design team, so I'll need that too, she says. Oh, not a problem. I just need your passcode to make any changes to the cake order and release your appointment details. Passcode? Oh, I forgot it. Just tell me. I'm really sorry, ma'am, but I can't do that. We take privacy seriously. Our hours are listed, and you're welcome to stop by any time to update your cake order or reset your passcode. Just bring your ID when you come in. Well, this was very unhelpful. Goodbye. I apologized again and wished her a good night. Then, I left a note on the daughter-in-law's appointment file about the call and flagged it so we'd know to check the passcode and ID next time. I also left a note for my manager about it, suspecting the mother-in-law might stir things up again with her son and daughter-in-law. Edit. If it were up to me, I'd let the daughter-in-law know about this call immediately, but I have to get my manager's permission first. After all, I don't want to get fired. Alright, everyone, that wraps up update number 1. Update number 2 happened just a day later. If you're not subscribed yet, go ahead and hit that button. Mr. Revenge Online has one channel, each with daily videos, and the newest one, Mr. Revenge Online Office Dramas, has all the latest updates. You'll find links in the description below. Now, let's jump into update number 2. Update 2. Our protocol says that if any change requests can't be processed, we should follow up within 20 hours. My manager asked me to handle this one since I initially helped with the appointment. So, I called the daughter-in-law and left a brief message for her to call back. She returned my call within an hour and asked to speak with me directly. Hello, this is the bakery. Joyce speaking. How can I help you? Oh, hi. I got a message asking me to call back, she said. Yes, ma'am, I was just following up on your request yesterday about changing the cake order. I'm very sorry I couldn't help you with it because I understand you forgot the passcode. Would you like to come in to update it? You'll just need to bring an ID. Wait, what changes? What are you talking about? I never called you. Well, we received a call yesterday around this time asking for your next appointment date and a change to the cake size. I never called you. I have my passcode here. Here it is. Was anything changed? Oh no, ma'am, that's the correct passcode. Nothing was changed. What would you like to update? No, hold on. Are you sure someone called about the cake? Yes, ma'am. Someone called with your information, but they didn't have your passcode. I promise, no details were changed or shared. Nothing will happen without the passcode and permission. I think I know who did this. Could you please note that I won't be making any changes over the phone? I want my passcode to stay the same, and from now on, I'll handle everything in person. No problem at all. I'll make a note on your account. Is there anything else I can help with? No, thank you. I really appreciate it. Thanks for letting me know. Have a good night. I told my manager about the call, and she flagged the account as high priority and sent out a memo reminding everyone about the passcode policy. She actually loves drama, so I think part of her is hoping the mother-in-law tries something again. Update number 3, 5 days later. So, here's what happened next. We're short-staffed because 2 bakers called out last minute, and we're swamped with huge orders. Because of this, I've been working in the back the whole day and haven't answered the phone at all. It's just me, 3 counter girls, and the bakers, and our manager isn't coming in until later in the afternoon. I'm going back and forth, dropping off pastries, when I hear a very familiar accent talking loudly up front. My heart sinks. Today is not the day for this drama. The oven is beeping, so I have to keep moving, and I can't stop to listen in. Suddenly, one of the counter girls, who I'll call CG, calls for me. Her voice is shaky, and I should mention she's only 18. She explains what's happening. The mother-in-law came in and asked to change a wedding cake order. CG, trying to help, notices the flag on the account and asks for ID. The mother-in-law says she forgot her ID and tells CG to make the change anyway. When CG explains she can't, the mother-in-law starts raising her voice and demands to speak to a manager. CG tells her that the manager won't be in until later. That's not good enough for the mother-in-law. She turns to the other customers in the shop and loudly complains about useless teenagers and how unprofessional our bakery is. CG, trying to keep things calm, politely asks her not to disturb the other customers and even offers her a free coffee and pastry as an apology. But the mother-in-law snaps back, calling CG a stupid brat. That's when CG excuses herself and comes to find me. Alright, everyone, I was pretty mad because we were way too busy for this, and people who are rude to employees, especially a young one, are just the worst. You don't talk to employees like that, especially not to a kid. So, I told the counter girl to take a deep breath, call our manager, and go on a break while I took care of the mother-in-law. Quick side note, I'm not great with confrontations, but I can still be professional even when I'm upset. Here's how the conversation went down. Oh, hello again. My name's Joyce. I hear you're having some issues with your order. How can I help? The mother-in-law starts complaining about needing to show ID, about the unhelpful phone girl, about disrespectful brats, and finally mentions she wants to make changes to the wedding cake. Ma'am, I'm sorry for any inconvenience, I say. But there's no need to speak about our teenage employee like that. Let me see what I can do. I said this a bit louder than usual, just enough for the other customers nearby to hear. The mother-in-law just grunts and says, just fix it. So, still in a clear, loud voice, I say, all right, I see the issue. Your order is flagged, and I can't make any changes without the proper ID or passcode. If you can provide either one, I'd be happy to help. Now she starts yelling, saying, I don't have an ID. I forgot my passcode. You're being very unhelpful. Okay, ma'am, there's no need to yell, I say calmly. I understand this is frustrating. But since you set the passcode, I'm sure you understand why we need it to protect your privacy. If you have your ID, I can help you reset the passcode. We want to make sure nothing is changed on your wedding cake without your direct approval. She looked furious but also embarrassed and finally said she'd be back later. I told her our manager would be in later if she wanted to talk to them directly. I watched her go to her car, where she made a few phone calls. When the counter girl came back from her break, I told her to let me know if the mother-in-law came back in. So far, she hasn't returned, and her car is gone. My lunch break is nearly over, and our manager should arrive soon, so I'll keep you posted if anything new happens. Update number 4. The next day. I've seen a lot of comments asking why I went along with the mother-in-law instead of calling her out. Here's why. 1. We have a protocol for situations like this. This is the first time I've personally dealt with it, but it's not the first time someone has tried to change an order they didn't place. Following protocol keeps me safe at my job, and I actually like my job. 2. Calling her out might just make her try again, but this time with someone who doesn't know her situation. She had already been rude to a teenager, and I didn't want anyone else to go through that. I'd rather let her dig her own hole. 3. I was also worried she'd cause a scene. It may be a small bakery, but I'm proud of my job, and I won't let one rude person ruin things for the other customers. Now, on to the update. My manager came in shortly after my lunch break. She told me to call the daughter-in-law, and not long after, the mother-in-law showed up. My manager took her into her office, and I called the daughter-in-law to explain what was going on. She asked directly if I recognized the mother-in-law's voice, and I answered honestly. She then asked what time my manager and I would be off work and said she'd be coming in. The mother-in-law was still in the office with my manager when the daughter-in-law arrived with her fiancé. The fiancé looked furious, and the daughter-in-law looked close to tears, so I got them some hot chocolate and donuts before letting my manager know they were here. My manager asked me to bring them back, along with the counter girl who had dealt with the mother-in-law earlier. The counter girl walked in first, followed by me, the daughter-in-law, and her fiancé. The mother-in-law looked smug, until her son walked in, and her face went ghost white. "Mom," he said, "what are you doing here?" The mother-in-law started talking in a different language. "Mom," he interrupted, "speak English. Daughter-in-law doesn't understand that language, and you know it. That's rude. Now, what are you doing here?" "I was just asking about the cake," she replied. "And these girls were so unhelpful. You should go to a different bakery. This place is terrible." The manager replied, "Actually, Joyce and the counter girl were following the rules. We explained that no changes could be made without a passcode or ID, and you refused to provide either." The daughter-in-law chimed in, "I knew you'd try to change the cake. We've told you over and over that we want a small wedding." The mother-in-law snapped, "Well, you want the small wedding. My son wants a big celebration." No, I don't, Mom, he said. We agreed on a small wedding because it's what we both want. And don't talk to me like that. I deserve respect too. My manager gently interrupted. I'm sorry, but this isn't the place for this discussion. Daughter-in-law, fiancé, here is the information you gave us for the cake size and design. Can you confirm it's correct? They both nodded, yes. Alright, very good. Daughter-in-law, your name is on the deposit, so I want to assure you again that no changes will be made without your ID. And I'm sorry, but we won't be using the passcode anymore. The mother-in-law muttered something in her language, and the son quickly told her to stop. She looked teary-eyed. The daughter-in-law thanked us. Thank you so much, and sorry for all the trouble. Oh, it's no trouble at all, I replied. I also need to let you know that the mother-in-law is no longer allowed to join any of your future appointments because of how she treated our employees. She's no longer welcome here. The mother-in-law sniffled. Oh, that's fine, she said. Stop it, Mom, her son said firmly. You raised me to know better, so I know you know better too. The mother-in-law muttered something in another language, but her son told her, in English, that she owed us an apology. She mumbled something else in her language, gathered her things, and left without another word. The daughter-in-law still looked close to tears, and her fiancé hugged her, apologizing for doubting her. My manager asked if they needed a moment, but they said no and apologized again for the mother-in-law's behavior. The counter girl and I were told to get back to work. In the end, the couple seemed okay when they left, and the owner approved a 10% discount on their cake to make up for the trouble. The mother-in-law is now banned from the bakery. If she shows up, we're supposed to ask her to leave and call my manager if she's around or the police if she's not. Update number 5. A few days later. I work weekends during the day at the bakery, but my shifts vary throughout the week depending on my other job schedule and what needs doing. Sometimes, I work up front with customers, other times I handle appointments for weddings and special events, and sometimes I just bake. Since we've been a bit short-staffed, I've been working from 2 a.m. to 7 a.m., cleaning, doing prep work, organizing, baking, and so on. When I work those early hours, I keep the front lights off and the doors locked. I even park on a well-lit street for safety, and since our kitchen is off to the side, the lights aren't visible unless you're right at the front door. Basically, the bakery looks empty during those hours. It's usually pretty quiet until about 7 a.m. when the breakfast crowd starts arriving. So, when the phone rang at 3 a.m., I ignored it. My manager and coworkers have my number, and we usually text if there's anything urgent. My job at that time is just to prep for the morning, and we have a great answering machine. But then the phone rang again at 3:05, then at 3:10, then at 3:15, then again at 3:20. I was elbow deep in dough and getting frustrated with the constant ringing. When it rang again at 4 a.m., I gave in and answered. Good morning, this is the bakery. Joyce speaking. How can I help you? Finally, a familiar voice answered. It's about time. I've been calling for over an hour. Why haven't you answered? Never mind that, I need to speak to someone in charge immediately. At this point, my inner voice is like, ugh, that accent, but I tried not to jump to conclusions, thinking maybe it was someone else with a similar accent. I told her, I'm sorry, ma'am, but we're actually closed right now. No, you're not. Don't lie to me. You're not closed. I apologize, ma'am, but we are. Our hours are from X to Y and someone will be available to help you then. That's not good enough. The people who work then are terrible, unprofessional, and rude. I need you to help me now. I need information on daughter-in-law's name, S-Cake. In my head, I'm thinking, oh wow. Ma'am, we're closed, and I can't help you with anything right now. If you'd like assistance, please call back during our hours. No. I need help now. You're lying. I know you're open. Open that door. I can see the lights on. Now, here's the thing. I've been really anxious lately, and the only way she could see the kitchen light is if she was right up against our front door with her face pressed to the glass. I panicked, freaked out, and hung up on her, immediately having a full-blown panic attack over the sourdough. The phone rang twice more while I was trying to calm down, but then finally went quiet. I texted my manager and a male coworker who'd be helping with the opening. My coworker texted back with a few emojis and a WTF. My manager called me, saying she was on her way and told me to stay inside. When my manager arrived about 20 minutes later, there was no one outside, but we found around 22 cigarette butts by the front door. I'd swept the entrance before starting, so we realized the mother-in-law had likely been standing outside for quite a while. My manager decided that from now on, no one could open or prep alone. We'd need at least 3 people on each shift. She also left messages for the owner and the daughter-in-law explaining what happened, though I ended my shift before I heard back from either. Update number 6, 4 days later. After the mother-in-law scared me half to death by lurking outside the bakery in the dark, the owner had finally had enough. She called the couple, explained what had happened, and told them that if the mother-in-law showed up again, she'd call the police. The owner told the couple that if the mother-in-law showed up again, she'd call the police. She also said she'd understand if they wanted to switch bakeries and offered to refund their deposit. However, she wouldn't tolerate her employees being harassed or scared. The daughter-in-law apologized for her mother-in-law's actions and promised there would be a conversation about her behavior. She reassured the owner that they didn't want to switch bakeries because she and her fiancé were both impressed with the professionalism and care around their cake. They also fully supported the owner's decision to call the police if necessary. Apparently, the future husband seemed a bit hesitant at first, but he agreed when the owner offered to refund the deposit again. So, that should be the end of it, right? The happy couple talks to the mother-in-law, she understands where she crossed the line, and everything's fine. Yeah, no, of course not. This is far from over. Since the mother-in-law learned that showing up won't get her anywhere and she could face the police if she comes back, she's resorted to calling us constantly. When she calls to make changes, our new line is, "I'm sorry, but we no longer make changes of this type over the phone. Please come in during our business hours if you need assistance." But this doesn't stop her. She keeps calling and the conversation always goes the same way. She gives us the daughter-in-law's name and asks about the next appointment or demands a change. We tell her we can't give out that information, repeat the line about needing to come in, and she insists on speaking to someone in charge. We put her on hold until she eventually hangs up and calls back later, trying the same thing. All of this over a cake. I'm planning to update on the tasting and design appointment once I have some time. Oh, and my manager gave me the green light to share with the daughter-in-law what I'd written about the situation. I wrote the info on a card as suggested by some readers, and gave it to her along with an explanation. I offered to delete the posts if she found it upsetting, but she actually loved it and thought it was hilarious. She said she mainly uses Tumblr and Pinterest, but she might check it out. So, hello if you're reading this. Update number 7, 3 days later. The daughter-in-law and her fiancé had their cake tasting and design appointment over the weekend. Right in the middle of it, the mother-in-law called, and the future husband let the daughter-in-law handle it. She ended up in tears from frustration, and I did my best to comfort her. When I told her about this thread, she was really amused that I'd been writing about her and her nightmare of a mother-in-law. She said her friends couldn't believe anyone could actually be this crazy. I gave her the link and told her, "We believe you, we're your people." She laughed and said she mostly uses Tumblr and Pinterest but might browse this as well. She even gave me permission to keep writing about it and share more details. So, here's a bit about their wedding. They're planning an Alice in Wonderland themed tea party. The ceremony and reception will be held at a small park. However, the mother-in-law is pushing hard for it to be held at her church, and she's even paid a deposit on a hall for the reception. She wants a religious ceremony and has invited family and church friends that the couple doesn't even know. The cake they chose is super fun and unique. They're going with a colorful design decorated with scenes from Alice in Wonderland, and the toppers will be the Mad Hatter and Queen of Hearts. I've seen the toppers and they're adorable. Their guest list is just 50 people, so they ordered a cake that serves 60. Meanwhile, the mother-in-law keeps trying to change their cake order to a classic 3-tiered, all-white design. She doesn't know the final cake design, so she keeps calling, saying we should forget what was said and follow her instructions. She insists the cake should be plain white with edible beading and serve at least 250 people. That's right, 250. The couple's guest list is only 50 people, but the mother-in-law has added a whopping 200 extra guests. While I was trying to comfort her, The daughter-in-law told me her mother-in-law has gone overboard ever since they got engaged. She was always traditional and stuffy, but now she's acting completely irrational. She leaves messages constantly and even shows up at their house uninvited. The future husband keeps waffling because he feels stuck between three important women. He even suggested that the daughter-in-law let his mom plan more of the wedding, saying, "Mom never got the wedding she wanted." I gently reminded her that this is her wedding, not her mother-in-law's, which made her laugh. Apparently, she told her fiancé that if he wanted to give his mom the wedding of her dreams, he could go ahead and marry her instead. She's getting really frustrated with both of them at this point. The designer working on the cake laughed and said his boyfriend was a bit of a mama's boy but eventually changed, so he understands what she's going through. I shared that I also had a difficult mother-in-law in my past. She said her fiancé is slowly learning to say no to his mom, and she really appreciates the effort. We're doing everything to keep that cake safe. The future husband came back looking angry, and the drama finally ended. We got back to choosing details and flavors, and by the end of the appointment, the daughter-in-law hugged both of us. I quietly reassured her that her cake would be protected. Before they left, the daughter-in-law and I exchanged numbers, and we've texted a bit since then. Apparently, the fiancé is slowly growing a backbone, but the mother-in-law isn't happy about it. Here's a little extra info before update 8. The mother-in-law has been playing this annoying game, calling constantly to try to change the cake or get appointment details. She even tried to add 10 loaves of sourdough to the order. What on earth, lady? Quick update. The mother-in-law has officially been uninvited from the wedding. The daughter-in-law told her fiancé that if his mom is coming, she won't be. He agreed. Now, the daughter-in-law is hiring security to check IDs at the wedding and to accompany the cake during delivery. She paid for this herself and specified that only she, not her fiancé, can make any changes to the approval list. Alright, everyone, Mr. Revenge Online here. Things are getting really intense, and update 8 is coming up right now. Let me just say, this one's wild. If you haven't subscribed yet, check the description for all the links. Now, here's update 8. 6 days later. This week has been rough. I lost one of my other jobs, had a total breakdown, and for some reason, my neighbor has started frying fish in the hallway, making my whole apartment smell like fish. I'm broke, exhausted, out of Nutella, and PMing. Basically, I've reached my limit. So, when this cake-obsessed mother-in-law called again, I was completely out of patience. Around 4 a.m. today, she called, and since my coworker was busy, I answered. We went through the same routine we've been dealing with all week. She hung up, but by 9:15 she was calling again, so I picked up. Then, around 11 a.m., we had this conversation. "Good morning, this is the bakery. Joyce speaking. How can I?" "Oh, you again. Why are you always answering the phone?" "I don't know, ma'am, I work here," I replied, even though I was so tired I briefly wondered if I was in the right job. "Get me someone else. I want to speak to someone in charge." "I'm sorry, my manager isn't here, but I can have her call if—" "Shut up. I don't want to talk to you, lady." A little later, while I was helping a customer, I noticed my teenage coworker getting upset on the phone. She's only 18, new to working at the counter, and this is her first job, so she hasn't yet been worn down by the rough side of retail work. I figured my coworker was dealing with a tough customer, so I signaled to her that I could take the call if she wanted. She shook her head and hung up. A little while later, though, I heard her on the phone again, sounding upset, so I paused to listen. She kept apologizing and saying there was nothing she could do. Then I could actually hear shouting through the phone from several feet away, and our coffee machines were running, so it was really loud. The poor girl looked close to tears, so I took the phone from her to handle it myself. Who was it? Crazy mother-in-law Karen, of course. You girls are so unprofessional. You young people are awful, too busy with your boyfriends or playing on computers to know how to give decent customer service. Are you going to help me, or should I take my business elsewhere? Oh, ma'am, I think it would actually be best if you did take your business elsewhere. What did you just say? Who's this? Where's the other girl? I said I think it's best you take your business elsewhere. My name's Joyce. I'm the person you'll be dealing with from now on, unless you'd rather speak to my manager. Oh, I'm sure you want my business. Actually no, I don't. Not particularly. What? Get me the other girl. You're a nasty, nasty woman. This is not how you treat people. I usually have a lot of patience, but I'd had it. I spoke firmly, stepping out of my usual politeness. Ma'am, I heard how you spoke to her, and you should be ashamed. She's 18 years old, and since you can't seem to be polite, it's best you deal with an adult from now on. From here on, you'll only be talking to me or the manager. She tried to argue, but I kept going. You've been told repeatedly that changes cannot be made over the phone. We have this policy specifically to avoid what you're trying to do. If you have any questions about the cake, I suggest you discuss it with your son and future daughter-in-law. It's their cake, not yours. You are not the customer, and you won't be allowed to make any changes to their order. Period. Now, is there anything else, completely unrelated to your son's wedding, that I can help you with? She was silent for a second, then hung up. I called my manager immediately and told her what happened. I thought I might get in trouble, but my manager was fine with it. She said she'd let the owner know and assured me not to worry. I also sent a quick text to the daughter-in-law as a heads-up. We've become friendly since her tasting and design appointment. I told her I was sorry for snapping at her mother-in-law. At least now the mother-in-law knows we're aware she's been trying to change the cake again. I apologized in case there was any fallout, but she texted back, joking that she was sorry she missed the show and might even hire me as one of her security guards for the wedding. Thankfully, the mother-in-law didn't call back for the rest of my shift. Seriously though, this week has been exhausting. Update number 9. 5 days later. Alright, everyone, this is a big one. I'm posting this with the daughter-in-law's permission, so please don't message me about invading privacy. She knows I'm sharing this, and I even sent her a draft to review before posting. Well, here we go. The wedding has been called off. Since I last confronted the mother-in-law, she's only called 6 times that I know of. I answered twice, and she hung up both times. My co-workers, who took the other calls, just hung up as soon as they realized it was her. Finally, the bakery owner gave us permission to stop dealing with her nonsense and hang up right away. After the cake tasting, the daughter-in-law and I became fast friends. We bonded over our love for fairy tales and the shared experience of dealing with this outrageous mother-in-law. I kept her updated on any calls from her mother-in-law, and she vented to me about the ups and downs of wedding planning. A few days ago, she came into the bakery for coffee and looked upset, so I joined her on my lunch break. She told me her fiancé had been asking her not only to re-invite his mom to the wedding but also to let her be more involved in the planning. She asked for my advice, and I tried to answer without giving a one-sided opinion, given my own rough history with an ex and his difficult mother. Instead of telling her to run for the hills, I suggested she think about what she truly wanted in her relationship. I told her to consider what she was willing to sacrifice or compromise on to keep the relationship strong. She thanked me, said she'd think things over, and would talk to her fiancé soon. She promised to keep me updated. Then, just a little while ago, she called me in tears. She had broken off the engagement. She found out that her fiancé had been playing both sides, telling her he supported whatever she decided while telling his mother that he thought she was being too controlling and that he'd try to convince her to let his mom attend the wedding. This led to a big argument between them, and he accused her of not understanding how important family is to Greek women, saying he didn't want to get married if his mom couldn't attend. When she agreed that maybe marriage was a mistake, he tried to backtrack, saying he was just bluffing. But she stood her ground. Since everything is in her name, even their house, she's staying with her sister while he moves back in with his mom. The daughter-in-law is coming in tomorrow to make some changes to her cake order. She told me she's turning it into a freedom celebration cake. She's inviting all her friends she had to cut from the guest list to make room for his friends and family, and she invited me too. She's also increasing the cake size to fit her now larger, more casual party and as a small goodbye gift to her mother-in-law. Since the relationship is over, I'm pretty sure there won't be more updates. Sorry, drama lovers, but this is the end of the saga. I told you this story was wild. Let's check out some of the comments. One person says, "Can you imagine the drama if the bride had gotten pregnant? I'm so glad she got out. I can't even think about what her ex-mother-in-law would have done during her pregnancy, or worse, at the birth. She'd probably be right in the delivery room trying to take control. Another comment says, "Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. I bet there will be another story someday about this mother-in-law." And a third person adds, "Well, at least they can ignore all the extra venues she rented for the wedding." So, is this one of the craziest mother-in-law stories we've ever had on the channel? I think it just might be. I'd love to hear what you all think, so drop your thoughts in the comments. That's the only story for today. Hope you all have an amazing day. Don't forget to check out our other channels in the description, and I'll see you later.